All right, so for today's video, we're going to be tackling the Doyle Conduit fitting and reaming screwdriver. Now, the part number for this guy is going to be 70687. Now, this is going to be available at your local Harbor Freight. If you're unfamiliar with the Doyle brand, like I said, it is available at Harbor Freight. And what Harbor Freight tends to do with the different kinds of tools that they have to offer is they either copy or they replicate a either more expensive tool, or it's generally a more expensive tool that is out there, and they tend to replicate it and offer it for a little bit more of a cheaper price. So this guy is kind of a clone, if you want to call it that, of the Klein conduit reaming tool, or at least their older conduit reaming tool. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at this guy before we bring in the Klein to kind of compare. So you do have the Doyle here on the handle, and then on these, on some of the screwdriver and some of the ribs on the screwdriver handle, I should say, they are textured. So if you were gripping it by this, you do have a nice little bit of texturing to grip on. It's not just a smooth rubber handle. I do like that they did include the rubber handle. It's kind of similar to the Klein. I wouldn't say it's as comfortable as the Klein, but it is nice. Definitely a nice little addition for a kind of a copy of a Klein. So you got the Doyle name there, and then you have it here on this side. You don't really have any safety or warning information like you would see on the Klein. I will give them credit. I do like this red acetate, or this red plastic that they are using. Definitely looks quite nice, and it's quite dark. It's a nice dark red, which is nice. Now, coming to the cap of the screwdriver, you do have an identification mark there. So if you had this in your tool bag and you were trying to identify which one of these, or which one of the tools in your bag was your conduit reamer, you are able to look on the top of it, and you have a nice identifier. And it isn't just, I don't think it's just a stamp. I think it's actually indented into the plastic, and then they kind of fill it in with paint, which is nice, because over time, especially if you use the tool quite frequently, the paint can start to come off. Pretty much an easy way to go and fix that is to get like a white paint marker, whatever color you want to paint it, fill it in, and then you just wipe the paint off of the surface, and it pretty much stays down in that little groove or indent on the screwdriver itself, or in this case, the conduit reamer itself. Now, coming to the business end, you're going to have your conduit reaming part here on the end. You're going to have your 1/2 inch, your 3/4, and your 1 inch. Now, it does look like this blade does come off of the tool via a little Allen key. You can take that blade off if this is something you use quite frequently and replace that. I didn't see any replacement blades offered in the store. I'm not sure if that's something they're coming out with, or if you can take the blade out and just put the one that's on the Klein in this guy. I'm not 100% on that one. Not something I have tried yet, but that is something to note. And then here at the top of the screwdriver, you do have that slotted bit for tightening those EMT fittings, and I believe they call this like a hood, which pretty much protects it from, it kind of keeps the tip from slipping out of the bit, or out of that fastener when you're tightening down those fittings. So that's pretty much it for the detail on this tool. I mean, it's relatively a simple tool to use. You just bring in a piece of conduit, and it just kind of slides down, and then you just spin this around a few times, and you can kind of see I am removing that burr off of the conduit, and what that allows you to do is make a proper connection. And when you're pulling wire through here, you don't really have to worry about kind of that sharp, jagged edge cutting or snagging your wire and then tearing it and causing a short. So that's pretty much it for the functionality of the tool. So like I said, this is a copy of the Klein version. So there is the Doyle version, and we're going to go ahead and bring in the Klein version. So as you can see, it's relatively an identical copy. There's a few things different, like with the molding. You got, 2 lines here, and you got like 4 lines here on the screwdriver, and then the handles are a little bit different. Honestly, I prefer the Klein handles a little bit more than the Harbor Freight handles. That's just me. Been using Klein for forever, so I'm kind of used to their handles, and that is what I like to use. And then the tops of these, pretty much they use the same exact logo on the handle. So if you had either one of these in your tool bag, it is, pretty easy to identify which is which. And then, the reaming part, it's pretty much the same exact tool. This is a little bit less of a polished finish on the reaming part, where the Klein is a little bit more polished, has a little bit more glossy finish to it, where it's just kind of just a kind of like that black oxide rough finish that you get on a socket. And that's that. And then they both have slotted screwdrivers with that hood to protect them. And it almost looks like this Harbor Freight one. If you're looking at it, it almost looks like the bit that they have in there, or the way that they did it, is kind of on a cocked of an angle. Whereas if you look at the Klein one, it's more straight in there, if that matters to you. So that is how it compares to the old Klein. Now, if you've been following the channel, or if you've been following Klein, they did release this newer conduit reaming driver, or reaming screwdriver, whatever you'd like to call it. So it's more of an improvement over the older one. I'm not sure if they're phasing this out or if they just came up with this design. But here is the newer one. You know, the bit comes out, allows you to put it in an impact driver. And you also have a 1/4 inch 5/16 nut driver, and then it comes with a square, and you got a little bit holder here, so if you don't want to use your nut driver, boom, you can put a bit into there, and it is interchangeable. So I guess you could say it's kind of cool that Harbor Freight came out with this, especially if you're into the Harbor Freight line of tools. But they kind of came out with it a little late because Klein has already kind of replaced it with something a little bit better or a little bit different. So it'll be interesting to see if maybe the next year or so Harbor Freight follows suit and comes out with something similar to the reaming driver from Klein. But with that being said, that's kind of all I have for this video. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down in the comment section below. And as always, there will be a link down in the description below if you want to find out some more information about this. Or if you want to see if your local Harbor Freight has it in stock, you can go ahead and check that out in the description below. And as always, thank you for stopping by and watching the review.